Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Jackie Kiger. It's my pleasure to introduce Matthew Phillips and Amanda Johnson. Matt is a career services resource designer, and Amanda is a student affairs career advisor. They are sharing on the topic engaging military affiliated students, how to create a comprehensive military career resource. Matt, the microphone is yours.
Thanks so much, Jackie. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and thanks to Molly and Becky for a great presentation. Kind of fortunate here in that some of the things we discussed, Molly and Becky already did a great job, so I can just skip over some things and spend some time talking about the resources we want to present. But yeah, Jackie, you summed it up great. That's our presentation. We're going to talk a bit about a comprehensive military career resource we created over the past year. And how we did it and why we did it. So a couple things we'll discuss: student demographics and key considerations, how to impact students 24/7 and 365 without geographic limits. I should add here also with limited technological limits. So Becky and Molly did a great job of discussing some of the inherent pitfalls of working on base or on a Navy ship that's out to sea, et cetera. So we'll try to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to explore some unique career development needs of military affiliated students. I'm going to largely depend on my colleague Amanda for that. And just to give you a bit of background about who we are and how we started to develop these resources, here that is. These resources were created at the behest of Grace Williamson, Director of Career Services and Alumni Relations here at Ashford. Grace is a military spouse. She has worked in career services and employee relations at West Point, at Princeton, as well as many other institutions. And she saw some gaps here with our military resources on the career services side and alumni relations side. And that's where these resources start. Another huge thing she did was bring a military specific self-assessment to Ashford. We will talk a little bit about that and how that works. But first, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Amanda Johnson. And Amanda, if you could just talk a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. So, hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Johnson, and I am one of the career advisors here at Ashford University. I am a certified federal career coach and job search trainer, and I also hold a global career development facilitator credential. So, I will let you introduce yourself, Matt.
Thanks, Amanda. Awesome. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of your certs later in the presentation, particularly the GCDF, I believe. So if you don't know what that is, Amanda's going to talk a little bit about it. For myself, I have an MFA from UTEP. Really, my focus is composition, but I've sort of fallen into the career services space. I was an admissions consultant for medical school applicants, and that's sort of how I arrived here. I work with faculty to develop assignments, work as partly a stakeholder in course developments. And then I guess most importantly for this, I'm Quality Matters certified in applying the Quality Matters rubric. So that's us. And Grace also holds a number of these certifications that Amanda discussed, as well as some others. So her direction was key, obviously. Really quickly, again, Molly and Becky talked about this population, how it's super broad, how it's super diverse. Basically, what we're going to say right now is that 24% of Ashford students receive one of Ashford's military grants. That's just a basic number that we can look at. So that's a pretty high number of students. So we know that these students are a large population, and mostly they require specific expertise and guidance, which we'll talk about later. But the second thing is that absolutely military affiliated students or military students have transferable hard and soft skills. But sometimes these skills, when we look at private industry, sometimes these skills are named a little bit differently, or they might be called something different. And you may not know that. So Amanda, I think you have a couple examples, or one example maybe that you could talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the biggest thing that I have noticed about working with our military affiliated students is that they typically have excellent leadership skills, managerial skills, problem solving, and communication. But the biggest challenge is translating that into experience or language that recruiters in civilian employment are going to understand. So, for example, driving a tank in the desert is not likely going to translate into a civilian job, but the skills that go into that, so the leadership that it took, your problem solving skills that it took to drive that tank, that is going to be transferable. So it's really just working closely with these students to explain that and really pull out those key transferable skills. So that's definitely the biggest thing that I've noticed with working with our military students.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great example. And I should point out, Amanda, I mean, you've worked previously as a, well, I'd call it talent acquisition, looking for highly qualified candidates for places like Google, Amazon, et cetera. So you have some insight into the HR and application of skills to job descriptions, right? So that's pretty cool. And then lastly, these students may need guidance in deciphering differences between military and private industry career approaches / strategies. So, in the military, things might look a little bit different as far as trajectory, as opposed to, say, working at a private industry company. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. We could also be talking about a variety of other things, but that's important to note. So just some guidance, just some insight into how private industry might work, right? As opposed to the military or the service. So let's see. So really quickly, these students require access to specific expertise as they embark on career development or transition. Okay, so that's where these certifications come in. That's where the previous experience as a military affiliated student comes in. That's where someone like Grace's experience as a military spouse comes in. So making sure we have a diverse workforce that's developing these resources, et cetera. Amanda, did you have something to say here? I can't remember if I'm skipping something. Oops.
Yeah, I can just cover what that GCDF credential, what it encompasses if you would like. So GCDF, it stands for Global Career Development Facilitator. So it is one of the most notable credentials in the field of career development. So in order to obtain this, I did have to complete a 120-hour training program. And it focused on 12 of the different core competencies related specifically to career development. So some of those core competencies were employability, labor market resources, diverse populations, and then program management. So that was just really great experience for me to just gain that additional expertise.
Yeah, and you know what I'll say, just having worked at Ashford for a while and in higher ed, is that that really takes our leadership saying, "Hey, you need this certification, and for these reasons." So you were able to go through that certification during work time, quite frankly, and use that time to better serve our students. So really awesome. Thank you. I want to make sure I don't go back on the browser like I just did. So apologies for any tech difficulties. As we've just discussed in the previous presentation, these students may need access to resources at myriad times and through multiple devices and or platforms. You're in Germany, you're in Afghanistan, you're in the middle of Pacific Ocean, et cetera. So we wanted to take that into account as we develop these resources, obviously. And then there are already many resources created for these students. Military One Stop or Career One Stop. There's a number of other places they can get this stuff. But we wanted to, I think, collate it and put it in one place so our students could almost just bookmark it in a browser on a phone and or download it as a Word doc and be able to access it wherever they are and at whatever time, and not have. It's really easy to forget, oh yeah, there is this great website for self-assessment. But if it's in one place, it's much easier for the student. And so, yeah, kind of leveraging the work of others in a way that's beneficial for our students. And again, Amanda, if I'm missing anything, just holler at me.
Nope, you're doing great.
Very cool. So our mandate from Grace was create an easily accessible resource that serves as a touchdown for military affiliated students. So we wanted to, one, make it accessible to student users on all devices. I say all, I sort of mean like laptop, iPad, desktop, and smartphone. I know there are other devices out there that people are developing. So I want to make sure we understand that as many devices as possible. Use a cutting edge learning experience platform. So we want to use something modern that's aesthetically pleasing, that's engaging to the student. And then enlist the help of a subject matter expert. That's Amanda. And then 4, leverage skills of learning experience designer, which is me, to create these resources or this resource. And that's what we did. So the first thing we want to talk about is the overarching resource, which we're calling the Military Career Action Plan. It consists of the military career pathway and the military career track. Notice the pathway we're calling a roadmap, and the career track we're calling a guided timeline. Not that important for students to understand, but for us as educators, I think it's important that there are some distinctions there. So gonna jump really quick to the military career action plan overview. And if you could just talk about that a bit, Amanda, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Matt mentioned, that military career pathway is a career roadmap. So it provides our students with career guidance and recommendation that aligns with their credit completion milestones. And then the military career track, which is that guided timeline, it assists them throughout that military transition process. So it is a little bit more detailed as well. So this military career action plan document, it is just a one-pager that describes what both resources are, how they differ, and then also how students can access them. And then Matt, if you could provide a link to this document in the chat later, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll definitely throw everything in the chat as far as links. And then, so one quick thing, military career pathway is available in the My Career platform. I'm going to talk about how you get there and show you screenshots on that, or how students get there. And so we'll talk about that. And the career track is a separate section we're going to talk about in a second, spend more time. And yeah, just to back up on what Amanda said, this is a flyer. It's hosted on Aquella, which is where we host so many of our learning documents. It can be integrated in courses. Amanda and I have done trainings with military student advisors, thanks to Heather Albin. And so they know it exists as well. So they can introduce it to their students. So let me jump to the next part here. So let's talk a little bit about the military career pathway. Again, it's in My Career. I'm going to show you how it looks for students once they access it. But if you don't know what My Career is our career management platform for all Ashford students and alumni. It is accessible through the student portal. So if you go in your student portal, or our students do, they just click My Career. It prompts, if it's their first time using it, it will prompt a brief survey about their employment, what they prefer for workplace culture, etc. And then it will pop them into My Career. And essentially, I'm going to show these pictures really quick. Once they get into My Career, it looks like this. There's sort of banners here in the initial part, but then they click on pathways. And if they're a military affiliated student at Ashford, automatically they're going to have this pathway available to them. Let me just give me one sec here. So that's kind of how it looks. You can see here, I've messed around and completed 16% of this pathway. But essentially, when they go into it, it will give them credit completion milestones and what we hope they would have done by that time. So they can check it off as they do it. And you can see here, it says 0 to 30. So it's saying, take some assessments, do some career exploration. If they click on this question mark, what happens is it pops up this, which is essentially an explanation of that thing they should be doing. And it points them to specific resources that are either paid for by Ashford Career Services or accessible to students for free. And they can take these assessments. You can see here, Veterans and Military Occupations Finder. I think SDS PAR is on here as well. It's just not in the picture. And then, of course, Strengths Quest and Type Focus. So that's kind of how that looks. Let me see if I can get out of here. Just so everybody knows, let me walk back really quick. So again, this this image doesn't show it, but it'll go all the way down to 120 credits. And for graduate students or doctoral students, the milestones are a little bit different. It's scaffolded a different way for them. And Amanda, did you have anything to say about that, or can I move on to the career track?
Yeah, I think we can move on to the career track.
Okay, great. So, and again, if you have questions about how to access My Career, we can absolutely answer that. You can email us. We have instructional language for it. It's being built into courses as we speak. So, yeah, it's a great option for students and to remind them about. I need to get out of this, and here I am. Hold on one sec here. Sorry, folks. All right. So let's jump to the military career track. So the question related to the military career track, which I'm going to show in just a second, is what are the comprehensive resources that these students, military affiliated students, need at any given time? How do we put all those resources in one place for them to bookmark and access on multiple devices? What we decided was that these are just some, they're not all, but everything from self-assessment, job market research, interviewing, goal setting, federal and private industry resume optimization, and then salary and benefits negotiation. Amanda, why don't we jump into the military career track and have you kind of walk us through some of the stuff? Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So we built this resource in Rise, which is part of the Articulate suite. Rise is web-based. Amanda and I could collaborate on it together, and it's super easy to modify. Like if we find, a typo in here, even though it's all been reviewed, et cetera. But if we find something or something goes out of date and we want to update it, we just jump in here really quick. I make the change and it's live everywhere people are accessing it. And now I'm going to have you walk us through it, Amanda. Go ahead.
Awesome.
I'll try to follow along as you go through. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. So as he mentioned, this is the military career track. So it is accessed differently from that pathway. So students do not have to log into that My Career portal to access this. So to go through the entire resource, it does take approximately 2 hours or so. So we do recommend that students bookmark this, like Matt mentioned, so that they can just revisit it whenever they have time. Or if they have a specific question, if they're working on their resume, they can just jump directly to that section or whatever that may be.
And I'll post the link in the chat for this as well. It's just a web link, everyone. That's what it is. So go ahead. Sorry, Amanda.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. So we did divide this into 3 different sections. So we have the pre-transition, the transition, and then the post-transition process. And then each section has its own recommended timeline and different resources to really guide them through that process. But we also stress that career development itself, as well as just that military transition, it is a unique and individual process. So the path that one individual is going to take is going to look a little bit different from the next person. So we don't want to freak anybody out by providing this timeline and having anybody feel like they're behind. So if you wouldn't mind, Matt, maybe hopping over to the self-assessment tab. And so this section, it just explains the importance of self-assessments and how the results can be used to make informed career decisions. So like Matt mentioned previously, we do offer our students with free access to that self-directed search from PAR Inc. So this is a great assessment. What it does is it links military occupation titles with civilian jobs. So if a student comes to us and they have no idea what type of career they want to pursue, this could be a really great first step, just to get them thinking about, what are some jobs that are related to what they are currently doing or previously did in the military.
Can I jump in real quick? I clicked on the navigating military transition with service-connected disabilities. That's a tab here as well. We have our colleagues in Access and Wellness to thank about that, so for their insight there. So I just want to throw that out there, but go ahead, Amanda.
Perfect. Thank you. And then another assessment that we highly recommend taking is the Military Skills Translator. And so what this tool does is it translates your military specific skills into then private sector skills and careers. So once again, this can just be a really great starting point to identify some career titles that align with your interests and based on your prior experience. And all of these tools are free to use. So in each section, we have that brief explanation of, hey, why are self-assessments important? And then here are some links that will bring you right to them. Matt, if you wouldn't mind going to the compensation calculator. I believe it was towards the top. But anyways, that compensation calculator is really important because this helps our students to determine how much pay would be required to match their current military pay. So we do provide a link to this compensation calculator so that they can go through and they can input all of their information, and then it's going to provide them with that estimated salary that they need to match that current pay.
Yeah, that's super important, right? My neighbor John is in the Navy, and he's like, I know how much I'm going to make, as he progresses through his career, but that's not how it is in the private industry. So sometimes folks, military affiliated students, I think need that insight, right? Even just to see, they're aware of it, but kind of how does that really look, I think is really important.
Yep. And it's really good to do that research early on so that when you're starting that career exploration or your job market research, you already have those financial requirements that you may need to support yourself or to support your family. It's good to know that information up front. So we do have that towards the top of the list. Another really important section, Matt, if you could jump down to the resumes. So we do have this section broken up into federal resumes as well as private industry resumes. And in both sections, we provide step-by-step directions. We provide links to resume builders to really help them get started with their resume if they've never built one. And then we also have several sample resumes as well. So it's really important to make sure that our students understand those key differences between a federal resume and a private industry resume because they are vastly different from one another. So a federal resume is typically 3 to 5 pages in length, which is much longer than that traditional resume. And it's because it requires a lot more compliance information. They also recommend using block paragraphs instead of bullet points like that traditional resume entails. So we just make sure we highlight those differences. So just depending on what track they're looking to pursue, if they're looking to work for that federal government or really move into that private industry.
And isn't it true that the resume builders for USA jobs, et cetera, are really key for students who are looking for federal jobs to use? Is that correct?
It's huge. Yep. I always route students if they've never created a resume or if they have a traditional resume, but they're looking to apply for those federal jobs. I always route them to that USA Jobs resume builder because that's the best way to ensure that you're including all of those key details that are required.
Right. And then lastly about that, I just want to add, our students are not alone in this crafting of a resume. They can directly reach out to you through career services, right? And you're going to take on their resume building, not their building itself, but guiding them through it so they're doing it correctly. And we can obviously review the resume, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yep. Really guiding them through that process, helping them to really craft it. And then once they have that bare bones or they've created that template of it, of going through and conducting that review and helping them to make sure that it's tailored not only to the industry that they're looking to enter, but also that specific job.
Awesome. Did you want to go through another section or should we? I think we're kind of running low on time, so it's up to you.
Yeah, we can stop now if there's not time. The last thing I was just going to cover was maybe the networking section. But in that section, we just described the importance of networking because it's typically something that our military students have never really engaged in the military.
We have just a few more minutes, Amanda, if you'd like to address that networking, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Jackie. Perfect. So yeah, it really just describes how important networking is in today's modern workplace. So a lot of times people do end up landing a job through networking over just blindly applying for a job online. So we provide several resources to really help build their network. We can work with our students one-on-one to ensure that their LinkedIn profile is updated and ready to go. And also just providing that insight of how can you use LinkedIn to build that professional network. We also provide links to several military-specific job fairs. And especially this year with COVID-19, a lot of those job fairs haven't taken place, but then it's guiding them to those online and those virtual career fairs as well. So we have several links to those.
Yeah, we actually pulled from vault.com, which is one of our major career resources, to throw some videos in there from the private industry. And so yeah, I think, again, this resource is a web link. It's available for use. It gives students action items they can take right away. I mean, you can register for a career fair now or join a professional organization after you click on it. So Amanda, your work on this is, I think, really comprehensive and incredible. So thank you for everything that you've done. And
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, it's really cool. I know we don't have a lot of time, so we actually don't have much more to discuss. The big thing was, these are our email addresses. You can email us about collaborations, issues, things you want to see or think you can help with or you need help with. And then also, I wanted to say that while Jackie kind of wraps things up, I'm going to post the resource links in the chat. And I just wanted to thank you, Amanda, for all you do and for your expertise. And then if you have anything to say to close it up.
No, thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it. And I also appreciate all that you have done and to translate all of this information into this incredible resource that is visually appealing and easily accessible. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great working with you. And thanks to Grace for making us do it, volunteering us to do it. No, I'm just kidding. Coming up with the idea. And we'll kick it back to you, Jackie.
Thank you very much. And before I stop the recording and end this segment of information for working with military students, the only academic word I can come up with is, wow, this is impressive. What a great resource. I can honestly say, when you were showing all those resources, I thought back to my days as my second enlistment, trying to go to school and pouring through what was then called the ACE book. The American Council on Education printed this big, huge encyclopedia of every A school and C school and tried to transfer it into potential credits. I poured over it for hours. In my mind's eye, I had like 60 credits, and I went down to the local community college and they gave me 3 credits. And I thought, you should give me 3 credits for filling out this form. It was just ridiculous. And I wonder now, I heard 2 things. I heard about great resources, but I also heard about an institution that recognizes what our military students need. And I saw that time and time again, where they just didn't know who I was when I would approach different duty stations and I would approach the local community college. Every opportunity for me to start over and never an opportunity for me to build. So I really appreciate your time in that today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so we can go ahead and move on into our discussion panel, officially move into our discussion panel. 1 second, please.